It is rather common for us humans to repeat certain actions, to acquire a routine, and some attribute that to our animal nature of wanting repetition to get us into a state where we are just living without questioning. However, we're more than just animals because there's a little phenomenon, or some might call it a curse, that is distinctively human. We question why we do what we do. And while that's not something that everyone will do, the fact that most civilizations ask themselves, why are we here? What's the point of doing anything? Speaks volumes. I don't want to enter into deep existentialist discussions in this video. Heck, I don't even think I'm qualified enough to even have such discussions. But what I want to talk is something that is a little less general than the larger picture. A one that every artist must ask themselves at some point. Why make art? At first, it seems like a question that we really shouldn't bother asking, but I want you to make an exercise with me. Imagine we live in a world without music. The mere concept of it is non-existent. And then one day a friend of yours comes and say, "Hey, look what I did." Then he starts making sounds, one after the other. Sounds that connect and that make you feel something even if you can't comprehend it. After your friend stops, you're flabbergasted. How can a conjunction of sounds with no direct meaning be the perfect representation of feelings you had, but you could never really explain? If you stop to think about it, the phenomenon of art is absurd. To create a material unit that has a dimension beyond logic and that touches us is, quite frankly, surreal. And maybe this absurdity helps the artist question, why the should I do this? What's the point? And what better way to tackle the subject of the value of art than through art itself? And so that's what we'll be doing today, by analyzing the Tarkovsky movie Andrei Rublev, or Rubleo, or I don't know how it's said. As in most of Tarkovsky's movies, the plot here is minimal, and even though there are interesting aspects to talk about in the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie, I'll skip to the point in the story which we'll need to understand this video. In 15th century Russia, the titular character Andrei is a famous iconography painter, famous throughout all Russia for his skill. He gets an invitation by a Greek master painter, Theophanes, to paint the walls of a church which the Mediterranean man has been commissioned to decorate with iconography. At first, this seems like just one more job for Andrei. He needs to go and paint, and so he calls his assistants to go with him. Andrei seems like someone who enjoys his work, but that never in his life has questioned why he does it. But soon he would start making questions. You see, on the way to the church, Andrei and his companions meet with a bunch of people of pagan faith. Andrei, like most artists, is curious about them, but the curiosity captured the painter, and so Rublev is tied up. The pagans mock him. They mock his faith, they mock his appearance, and yet he's unshaken. He tells this man that they'll burn in hell. Come torture or anything, he is ready. What he wasn't ready for, however, was what followed. A pagan woman comes to Andrei and starts questioning his faith. In a mixture of seduction and genuine curiosity, she starts a conversation with the Orthodox man. He maintains his stance, even if she is enticing. She is still a pagan. But then she cuts him loose, freeing him. He is perplexed, but he has no time to lose. He leaves while the girl watches him. In the next morning, Andrei manages to regroup with his fellow travelers. And just as they are about to traverse a river, they start hearing shouts. It's the pagans, but they are not shouting for a ritual they are performing, no. These are shouts of despair, of fear. They are being chased by Russian soldiers, to be arrested and far worse, since they are pagan. And among those fugitives is none other than the girl who saved Andrei. And he notices her. He sees this girl being chased by horses and apprehended to suffer a tragic fate. And she, being pagan, for a Christian of the 15th century such as our protagonist, it should be right that should happen. And I reckon that had this scene happened one day earlier, This thought that her punishment is just would surely be what Andrei would be feeling, and he knows that. However, she's the one who saved him, who showed him compassion. Should her fate really be so? But even with this thought, the division in Andrei's soul prevents him from acting, from doing anything about it. At this point you might be wondering why I'm bringing this scene up, if the subject of this video is the importance, the reason for art. And the motive I have for detailing that scene is because of how it affects Andrei's relation to his art. When he arrives at the church, Andrei has to paint an icon of the Judgment Day, of pagans burning in oil. But he can't bring himself to do it. It takes so long that even his master, the Greek, dies. But how can he put forward art that he does not believe in? If his faith is shaken and if he hopes in the bottom of his heart that the pagan girl does not suffer this horrible fate, how can he paint? Or more generally, how can an artist make a work he does not believe in? And so Andrei is unsure about painting or not. He can still paint other icons such as the Sacred Family, but is still a shaken will is a shaken will. And the worst was still to come for our protagonist, for you see, one day the village near the church wherein lies Andrei is invaded by a Tatar horde. A Tatar horde which is allied with a Russian prince. They ravaged the town, burned it, killed the people, and all that you would expect from a tribal invasion such as this one in this time in history. And then they come for the church. They burn it and start killing some people, committing acts of heinous violence with the women. Ones I need not to elaborate for you to get what I mean. And even gruesome torture, melting a bronze crucifix and making one of the monks swallow it. And amidst this scene of horror, Andrei is able to save one girl, no doubt trying to save a woman as he once was saved by a girl. But to do so, the monk murders a Tatar soldier. After the massacre is done, he is able to emerge unscathed of the mess alongside the girl he saved. But in a hallucination where he talks to Theophanes, Andrei shows all his disillusion. Is this the people I present my art to? Is this humanity that I'm supposed to serve? And for what in the end? For everyone to be barbaric and for my paintings to be burned? Andrei makes a vow of silence. He won't speak to anyone, nor will he ever paint again. There's no point. Something that life keeps tormenting Andrei with since eventually the girl he saved, the one glimmer of hope and good left in his life for years, is taken to be a wife of a Tatar warrior, and worst of all, by her own will. Even the act of charity, of kindness, is paid with indifference as soon as it becomes useless for the person saved. A message that I believe many watching this video will have felt in their lives, in one point or another, especially if you work with art. For sometimes you may work your ass off, do something truly sacrificial for you, and be paid with nothing but hate, or at worst, indifference. However, life is a funny thing. It will throw obstacles at you, but sometimes it will also show you something worthy. It will give you a beacon for you to look for, and to solve your inner indecision, as it did with Andrei in the last part of the movie. We go years in the future, and the focus of the story shifts to a teenager named Boris. He's met by a Russian soldier who asks for his father, a famous bell caster. But his father and all other masters of bell making are dead to a plague. Only he is left. And just as the soldier is about to go away, Boris says he can do the bell, he can cast it. That his father has given to him the secret at his dying breath. The soldier doubts the boy, but as failure in this mission means certain flogging, he takes Boris with him to cast the bell. We get to the site where this church will be built, and who's there? Surprisingly, but not actually, Andrei Rublev, who has been speechless for more than a decade at this point. But yet he resides in monasteries and does his holy duty, just without painting or speaking. He's doing these unspecified priest duties in this yet to be a church which will be built from the bell. Boris is preparing for the bellcast with the other workers. He's a very harsh boss and demanding in his process, requesting a specific type of clay which is nowhere to be found, and even sending a fellow worker to be flogged for the crime of having disobeyed him. However, this disobedience did not come out of nowhere. The workers sense that Boris does not know what he is doing, that he is trying to make up a recipe for the bell based on his little experience and not from the study of his father's techniques. And crucially, this feeling is also felt by Boris. He grows visibly more and more anxious as the bell draws near its completion. There is a risk that the bell will be a dud, that all that work, all those resources and time would be spent on a bell that does not resonate, that makes no sound. And the bell gets ready. It's time to ring it. They start shaking the bell, they shake the bell, and it rings. The most beautiful sound of bell ringing appears as the crowd rejoices. Amidst the crowd, Andrei. But Boris is not staying there. He goes away, breaks down, and starts crying. A cry of relief, since his father had taken his secret to his grave and left Boris in the dark. But it worked, and Rublev comes to comfort the young craftsman, and crucially, he does that by talking. He says to him, "Let's decorate churches. You cast the bells, I'll paint the icons." At the end of the day, with this sonorous ringing of the bronze bell, an epiphany struck Andrei. All the people in the crowd may be mischievous, the princes might be corrupt, and the clergymen be fools. But yet, art is still something worthy. If not to make us better, still as something in itself, complete and beautiful on its own merits. And if that is so, who is Andrei to deny such a gift its existence? Surely we can have another take on this scene and the movie as a whole. The element of faith is particularly present, but I wanted to share this point of view with you guys. After all, if this channel has any point, is that art does matter. Thank you guys for watching, and if you got to here, please subscribe and leave a like, because this like will let other people see my video more easily. And also, I'll see you in the next one.